Cheers! Happy Monday and welcome back to Drinking by Myself. My name's Emma and in this video I'm going to be answering your guys' questions. I recently hit 10,000 subscribers and so to celebrate I did a little Q&A over on Instagram where I got you guys to ask me questions over on @drinkbymyshelf, just in case you're still not following, and I got so many questions, so we're going to go through as many as we can, but I'm so sorry I can't answer all of them. And they were a mix of, most of them were about my reading, but I did say you guys could ask me anything, so I've got some other random ones about my life in there as well. I had a lot of favourite books growing up, so I guess it kind of depends what time in my life you mean. But Ella Enchanted is a big one. I talk about that book a lot on this channel. That was probably my favourite book in terms of the books that I would read myself. But of course then there's also books I would have read to me, and those are favourites kind of for different reasons because of like the memories and stuff associated with them. So The Little Wooden Horse, for example, is a book that my dad used to read me and I loved that one. My mum used to read me the Little House on the Prairie books and I absolutely loved those as well. We read a lot of Enid Blyton, like the Mallory Towers books were big in my family. Yeah, reading has always been like such a huge part of my life, so it's really hard to narrow down, but Ella Enchanted is like my go-to for if you ask my childhood favourite book. Yes, love this. I have been to Croatia. So on my gap year when I was 18, I went interrailing, which I don't know, if you're not from Europe, I don't know if you know this as a thing, but it's quite a popular thing to do on gap years, and you can buy an interrail ticket which gets you like a month's worth of travel on the trains around Europe. So I did this with a group of 4 of us. We just travelled around loads of different countries in Europe and had an amazing time, like such a memorable month of my life. And of the countries we went to, my favourite country that we visited was Croatia. It was absolutely beautiful. We spent 2 nights, I think, in Split, which was much more touristy, but then we went to Dubrovnik and I just fell in love with it. It was so beautiful. We went to the old town, which was gorgeous. Yeah, I absolutely loved it. I would love to go back to Croatia. I think the person who asked this is from Croatia, so I'm very jealous of you. I'm going to say for this one, it would be The Perks of Being a Wallflower by Stephen Chbosky. So this, I actually wrote an essay about this once for Bustle, so I will link to that if I can find it. This was one of those books that came into my life at the exact perfect time. So when I was like 18, I guess, I was raised religious. And when I was about 18, I stopped believing in it and originally found that quite hard to cope with because it's such like a shift in your life when you stop believing in something that you previously had relied on. Oh, Hippo's just moved to the camera, so sorry about that. I remember for a while really struggling with that and not really knowing like what the meaning of my life was supposed to be anymore. And for some reason, I read The Perks of Being a Wallflower and it like fixed it, which is so strange because that book is not about religion, I don't think in any way. But for some reason, it offered me at that time exactly what I was needing. It offered me a different way of viewing the world, which I had just needed to kind of put things back into perspective for me and make things make sense. So yeah, if you're interested in what I mean by any of that, I will link to that essay because I think I explained it a bit better then because I can't quite remember now, but it was about the quote where he says, right then we were infinite, and it was about kind of just finding new ways to like assign your own meaning to life, because I guess when you're religious, that assigns your meaning for you, and if you suddenly lose that, you're like, well, nothing has any value. And I remember just being like, I remember being at home with my family and not wanting to play games with them or like do the jigsaw puzzle with them because I was like, why would I? Like, my life has no meaning. And then for some reason that quote about being infinite just made me kind of realise that like we are infinite in our own lives and we can assign our own value and importance to the things that matter to us. I don't know why, it's super random, but that book, like, yeah, it literally did change my life at that time. I know exactly what I want to write a book about, and it's something that I haven't started writing, but I've started like gathering a lot of notes on. So I don't want to talk about it in case I don't do it or in case I do it badly, but there is a historical figure that I really want to write a novelisation of and change their story to like give them the story that they deserve. That's all I'll say. I got a lot of people asking what my desert island books would be, and I actually did a video about this years ago. One of like the first videos I ever did was called Desert Island Books, so I will link to that. It was me and my friend and we kind of debated what our books would be, so I don't remember what we said, but go and watch that video. A book that I recently read all in one go was The Test by Sylvain Neuvel, and that was great. It's like kind of watching an episode of Black Mirror but reading a book, so you can read it really quickly. It's very strange. It's one of those books where I'm not going to tell you much about it because it's better going into it not knowing. but it's a kind of dystopian version of a British citizenship test. It's really good, and yeah, you can finish it all in one go. There are so many books I'm intimidated to read. I get really put off by books I think are going to be hard for me. So for example, I mean, like the books I have up here, the Persephone books, anytime I read a Persephone book, I love it. But for some reason, I'm always so intimidated to pick them up because I think they're going to be hard to read. Also, just a lot of classics, really. Like, I haven't read much Charles Dickens, and I keep really wanting to read stuff. I just watched the movie David Copperfield, and it was great, so I want to read that book. But it just, I don't know, it intimidates me. They're so long, and I feel like I won't understand the language. So it's a lot of classics really intimidate me. All of the Jane Austens, definitely. I absolutely love Jane Austen. Really hard to pick a favourite Jane Austen if I had to, but maybe a personal favourite might be Sense and Sensibility, because I love the sisters in it. But also, Persuasion is also my favourite. Maybe that one, actually. But also, Emma is also my favourite. I love them all. They're great. I like this question. Imogen asked if, after having done my Series of Unfortunate Events readathon, if I can actually differentiate between the books or if it's all a blur. A lot of it is a blur. What's useful with those books is they all have very different settings and the name of the book reflects the setting, so that makes it a bit easier to differentiate what happened in them. Whereas like when I did my Princess Diaries readathon, even on that night when we tried to do a wrap up, it was way harder to separate what had happened. It was just like one big blur. This is such a good question because I get a lot of my book recommendations online from BookTube, but I also am really lucky that I have a lot of people in my life who read. So my whole family are big readers, my parents read a lot, my sister reads a lot, and a lot of my friends are big readers. Like we have a book club, so I don't know if I had to pick one person from my life to recommend books to me, but possibly me and my sister have like the most similar taste in books, so I would probably go with her recommendations the most often, but it's a really hard call. I'm so grateful for all of my friends who recommend books to me. Well, it's ironic that I'm drinking beer because wine is absolutely my favourite drink to have by my shelf. I just don't have any in the house right now. It's hard. I don't get reading slumps that often, but when I do, it is really hard. I would just say DNF books, DNF, DNF, DNF. If you're reading a book that you're not enjoying, it's not going to get you out of that slump. You're just going to further and further not want to pick anything up. So I would say just keep being really, really harsh. Even if you then like put the books back on your shelf because maybe you'll want them later. But if it's not what you want to read in that moment, put it down, pick something up, try a different genre, try something trashy, try something thrilling, try anything that's like different and new from what you've been reading lately is probably the best way to like break that cycle. Bisexual characters, 100%. In adult fiction, I think there's more and more in YA, which is great, but I would just love to read more literary fiction about bisexuality, or thrillers where the character is bisexual, like genres where it's nothing to do with that, but they just happen to be bisexual. That would just be great to see myself represented more. I love this question. I would want Kate McKinnon to drink me because I think she's gorgeous. To be honest, my main motivation was that I was a bit bored. So I, at that point, was working from home, which really did not suit me. I'm definitely a like go into an office kind of person. I like being surrounded by people. And working from home, I found myself feeling just quite lonely and quite isolated. I also, at that point, was working freelance, doing writing and editing. I wasn't at that point working in making videos, but I had been before, so I was kind of missing that. So I decided I might as well just film my own videos and it would give me something to edit, because editing videos is what I love, that's what I love doing. So I basically just used like me chatting randomly about books as an excuse to have some footage to edit, and also it gave me something to do where I felt a little bit less isolated from working from home. So I just kind of fell into it. I didn't even realise that BookTube was a thing at that point. I just was like, what can I talk about? Books. And then when I posted it, I discovered that BookTube was out there. I think meeting other booktubers, going to like the London booktube meetups, which are so much fun, and getting to meet such great people. Also meeting people like Emma Tobias, who's one of my just favourite people in the world, and she's someone that I never would have met. Like, she lives in the States, we never would have known each other, but we kind of connected through BookTube and then got to meet in real life, which was fantastic. So it's definitely about those connections. I think there are a lot of good adaptations. There's a lot that I really don't like and I complain about a lot, but I think there are some fantastic ones. I love The Princess Bride. I think that's maybe like the best in terms of it being the best adaptation. It helps that the screenplay was written by the same author of the book, William Goldman. I think that one's brilliant. More recently, I thought The Room was an absolutely fantastic adaptation. I think Bridget Jones is a brilliant adaptation. Yeah, I think there's loads of really fun ones, even though I do complain about a lot of them. There are so many amazing readathons out there at the moment. I can't even believe how creative and incredible these people are. So for example, the Magical Readathon that Book Roast runs, she's on her 3rd year now, and she does the Owls and the Newts every year, as well as a special winter edition. And they're so cool. So you get to basically read to take your Hogwarts exams, and then you get to kind of pick your career that you're aiming for. The winter Magical Readathon this year was one of the most incredible things I've ever seen, because it was like a sort of choose your own adventure TBR. So you couldn't plan your TBR in advance. You would go through every week, a new chapter was released, and you would go through answering the questions on like which paths you picked in the adventure, and dependent on that you would get assigned your book challenges. So it was like new every week, and it was so cool. Also, Rachel Marie's Book Journey runs the Bookie Trials, which are also fantastic. That's like a team-based readathon, and again, she's just, the things that she thinks of are incredible. And for that one, she has a map with challenges that you're working towards to work your way through the map, but she also does other mini activities. There was like a scavenger hunt last year. She's got a little mini one coming up in March, which looks just incredible. So again, amazing. Also, I recently co-hosted the Thrillerathon with Harriet Rosie, which again, was so cool. I loved doing it. I vlogged the whole thing where I read like 9 thrillers in 9 days, so I'll link that below. But she created this Cluedo board where each book challenge represented a Cluedo card, and you had to try and collect a murder weapon and suspect and location. I've also seen there's a Sims readathon. I haven't done that one, but it's one I really want to do, which is based on like Sims 4 and the expansion packs. People are so creative. I feel like readathons have evolved so much in the last few years, and I love it. I really don't like when a story that you didn't originally know was supernatural suddenly turns out to be supernatural. I don't mind things that are supernatural from the beginning, as long as it's like mild, not too fantastical. I think that can be really fun and interesting. But when it's like suddenly a plot twist caused by something supernatural, that's a real turn off for me. Also, anything that's like sexist or really heteronormative, I really just don't like reading about those. Oh, that's hard. I have so many celebrity crushes. So I already mentioned Kate McKinnon. She would definitely be up there. Milo Ventimiglia in the Jess from Gilmore Girls days. I really fancied him. I really fancy Shannon Beveridge, the YouTuber. And then probably my most embarrassing one is that I really fancy Tom Holland, even though I know he's so much younger than me, but I do just have a really big crush on him. I don't talk very much about it on YouTube, to be honest, so I don't have very much experience on it because it's something that I often am not quite sure how to bring up. So sometimes I feel a bit like left out when there is like a whole kind of sub-community of queer booktubers, and I never quite like talk about it enough to feel really like included in that. Bi erasure is such a big thing. The fact that I have a husband does not mean that I'm not bi, but it's still so ingrained in me that I'm like, oh, don't talk about that, it will confuse people, which is silly, really. Yeah, so I work for Macmillan. I'm the creative producer there, so I produce 2 videos every week for Book Break, which is our booktube channel for the company, and I also produce a lot of the videos for just the general Macmillan channel. And I absolutely love it. It's such a great job. It's not a job that I ever would have aimed for because I didn't know it existed. It didn't exist until a few years ago. So like when I was thinking at school about the jobs I wanted to do, it wasn't something that ever existed. But I subscribed to the channel back when Lena was running it, then Jean did it, and after Jean left, I was like, this is absolutely just perfect for me, getting to make videos and talk about books for a living. So I've been doing it for coming up on 2 years now, and I love it. My job is mainly making the videos, like I said. I also get to work with other influencers, sending books out to them, getting to hear what they want more of. Just working in general, like within the digital marketing team, is really interesting, learning about all the other ways of digital marketing. So yeah, it's great. It's great company, great team, great job. I actually find that very easy to do because the channels are very different. It's very, very rare that I have a video idea that I don't know which channel to put it on, because the ones on this channel are much, much more personal. The ones on Book Break are more general book recommendations. It's still personal, it's still my personality that goes into the videos, but obviously for a company YouTube channel, it's not really appropriate to have like really personal information about me, or like my own weird little challenges that I set myself. Like, those belong on here, and Book Break is for kind of amplifying books on a theme that fit really well together, or books from a particular genre that I want to share out there. So that they do, I think, separate quite well. So please subscribe to both, because you won't find overlap, I promise. Oh god, there's so many people that I would love to play me. The person that I have been compared to the most in the past would be Gemma Arterton. I don't think we look similar at all, but that could be fun if she played me. I don't really know. What do you guys think? Who do you think would play me in the movie of my life? One of my biggest disappointments was probably If on a Winter's Night a Traveller. That was one that was in my 5-star predictions and I didn't like it. I will link to the video where I did the reaction there. I bought that book so convinced I was going to like it. I did the try a chapter tag, I read the first few sentences, and I was like, yes, this is my new favourite book ever, and I bought it and I didn't like it, which was a real surprise and disappointment to me. Pizza, a movie, and then more drinking. That's a hard one. I don't have that many pet peeves, because in general, there's lots of types of videos that I don't particularly like to watch, but then I just wouldn't subscribe to that kind of channel, so it's not like a pet peeve. What are the things that actually annoy me on BookTube? I think it would probably be when people I think it's fine, some people don't edit their videos and it works really well and that's really cool, but it annoys me when people don't edit out bits that they probably should. Like when there's a lot of lip smacking noises or slurping tea or something. I'm like, oh, I can't watch that, you should have edited that out. I know I always drink in my videos, so that's very hypocritical. One horse-sized duck. I don't want to fight 100 of anything. Well, yes, I would definitely like to live somewhere outside the country for a bit. That's just the kind of adventure that I've always wanted to have. I lived in Italy for a few months when I worked there on my gap year, and I really loved that experience of living somewhere else, but I also was very homesick. Yeah, if I was going to live somewhere else, chances are it would be the US, because my husband is American, so it makes sense for us to live there, and we probably have that kind of in our plans for a while. But I have to say, I love living in England. I don't think it's a perfect country or anything, but I feel really at home here. I do feel more comfortable living somewhere where we have the NHS rather than living in a country like the US where there isn't something like that. So the answer to your question is yes, I absolutely would consider living in the US and probably will at some point. But I do view England as my ultimate home. Oh, I love my headbands from all over the place. This one I'm wearing now is from Topshop. I have quite a few from just random little shop in the Isle of Wight near my parents. I've got a few that my mum's friend made. All over the place. But I love headbands, can't get enough. You know what? This is actually a debate we had at work recently. First we asked if you could only eat one genre of carb, which would it be? And I found that really, really hard, but I picked potatoes in the end. You're going to make some noise right by the microphone? Thanks, Hippo. And then we tried narrowing it down even further to, if you could only have one type of potato, what would it be? What did I say in the end? I think curly fries. I have them the least often because, for some reason, so few restaurants do curly fries, even though they're the best. But if I can say chips in general, it would be chips, but curly fries if I have to be specific. Oh, this is hard because I love musicals. The Sound of Music is one of my favourite films ever, so it has to be that. Hamilton, I absolutely love. A recent one I saw was Come From Away, which was brilliant. I don't know if that counts as being in one of my favourite musicals, because actually that's not a soundtrack that I listened to, it's just that the play was so good. And again, Waitress, I also absolutely loved, but again, that's one that I just I loved the play so much, I don't tend to listen to the soundtrack so much. I listened to the soundtrack of Six a lot. When La La Land came out, I was obsessed with it and I listened to the soundtrack on repeat for a month, but I haven't listened in a few years now. I think I've already mentioned 5, but I don't know if those are my favourite. I love musicals. I love musicals so much. Grease, I haven't mentioned Grease. Grease is one of the best films ever. Oh my god, I could go on for days, so I'm going to stop there. Yes, absolutely, that was my lovely dog Hippo, who is right here. You want to come here, Hippo? You want to come here? She's very camera shy. This is my lovely Hippo. I'm so sorry. She really hates the camera. I'm going to let her out of the room because she's stressed. We met at university. He was on an exchange over from the States at Newcastle, but specifically it was in a wet t-shirt competition at a Valentine's Day party. The best part has just been that it's really exciting. Like, I've loved watching the numbers suddenly go up. The worst part has been that it's suddenly a lot harder to reply to all of the comments, and I've always loved being able to reply to basically every single comment that I get, and now suddenly I find that it's just like a bit overwhelming. I still try to reply to almost all of them, but it's suddenly got a lot harder in the last month. So, the character that I think I most like is, and this isn't a good thing, is Marianne Dashwood from Sense and Sensibility. When I was younger, I related to her so much, and I thought that was a good thing, because I thought she was this, like, romantic, troubled soul, and I just thought she was great. And then I've reread that book loads of times. Every time I read it, I view her as, like, worse and worse, but I still think I relate to her so much. And the moment when I most, like, am ashamed to relate to her is when she's making a big old fuss about her life, and then she criticises Eleanor for not having been upset enough about this big thing that happens, not going to give spoilers, and Eleanor eventually, like, breaks down and talks about her own broken heart. And Marianne's reaction then is to make it back all about herself. Like, she's so upset that she's been such a bad sister, and she's like, oh, how could I do this? Oh, I'm the worst person in the world. And Eleanor ends up comforting her. And at that moment, every time I read it, I'm like, oh God, Emma, that's so you. You managed to make your own flaws into, like, you being the victim of any situation. So yeah, Marianne Dashwood is kind of the worst person ever, but I really do relate to her. No, I don't. I'm so sorry. Firstly, I don't believe in guilty pleasures. I don't think you should feel guilty about anything you read. But I don't personally read any YA dystopian or cheesy romance, so that's not, I don't have a secret list full of that, otherwise I definitely would have told you about it. I wouldn't be ashamed. Oh, that's a mean question, because book break is my job, so I definitely don't want to give that up, but drinking by myself is, like, you know, this is my channel, this is the channel where I get to, like, have most creative control, so I love making these videos. That's a really tough and mean question, but I guess the answer is, like, I absolutely love making book break videos, but I don't see myself making those videos forever, you know, like, hopefully my career will progress beyond that, whereas drinking by myself is something that I can see myself running for a long time, even if it evolves. Like, who knows how booktube will change over the years, and this channel might evolve, but I don't see myself giving this up anytime soon. I don't see myself giving up book break anytime soon either, but I just, you know, hope eventually that my career will progress beyond that. So I guess that would be how I would think about that question. I used to try and keep every book I had read. I really liked the idea of having a massive collection that was everything I'd ever owned, but I just don't have the space for it, and also I realised, I think my mind had just changed. That wasn't necessarily what I wanted, was to have everything I owned. I wanted to have a more curated shelf of books that I love. I still keep a lot of them, so it's not like I only keep the best books ever. This entire wall behind me is all books I've read, but I only keep books that I enjoyed. Otherwise I will give them to charity and somebody else might enjoy them more than I did. I actually really want to get a tattoo at some point of the illustration from the front cover of The Little Wooden Horse. The only thing that's holding me back is, I don't know if my dad's going to be watching this video, he hates tattoos and he loves The Little Wooden Horse. He introduced me to that book, and I feel like if I got a tattoo of it, it would, like, ruin that book for him. So that's probably the reason I won't get that one, but it's one that I would really like. I think about 10 is my goal. I don't want to have it be 0, because then what if I suddenly need to read a new book and I don't own one? Like, I want to have stuff there to read, but I think about 10 is a good number because it would fit, like, all on one shelf. It's really manageable. I don't like the idea of not having a book there to read. And also, I recently got to a 0 watch later, like the playlist on YouTube. That had been so long, and I got it all the way down to 0, and then I really didn't like it because it meant that, like, when I wanted to watch a YouTube video, there wasn't anything there. I like having something backed up. So yeah, I don't want to get to 0 TBR, I think I'd be bored. Obviously, Gussie Fink Knottle. This was a question from my dad. He knows the answer to that one. Ooh, so, family dogs that we had, Horace and Bumble were the ones we had when I was really young, but I don't remember them. Then the first dogs I remember us having were Roddy, full name Herodotus of Halicarnassus, and then Troy. They both very sadly have died now, and now my parents have Bobby, short for Bobby Wickham, who's another P.G. Wodehouse character. Personally, I had a rabbit when I was younger called Snowman. Then I had 2 fish. The first one was called Squidge Monkey, Snakey, Sharky, Tikey, Shazden the Third. And then that one died, so then I got a new one that was called Billy Bob Jiminy, Snakey, Sharky, Tikey, Shazden the Third. And now, of course, I have my lovely hippo. Definitely go to Gaze the Word. That one is fantastic. I recently went to John Sandoe Books by Sloane Square and I loved it. Could have been there for hours. I love Page's Cheshire Street, which is devoted to books by women and non-binary authors. And I love Daunt Books Marylebone. It's just beautiful. Probably the fact that all my friends are here, really. I've always wanted to live in a big city and I love it. I love being able to walk everywhere, not needing a car. There's a lot of free things to do in London, which is great because it is an expensive city to live in, but there are a lot of free activities you can do. You didn't ask what my least favourite thing, but I'm going to tell you anyway, would be that it's a very early city. Like, things shut down very early at night, which I still am not used to. Coming here from uni, that was like a real shock, wanting to go out really late at night and finding that like the pubs are all closed on like a Saturday night. That is quite bizarre to me. But overall, I love London. I could stay here forever. In the last year, it would be Before the Coffee Gets Cold by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. I've talked about this one a lot. It's this lovely Japanese book about a time-travelling cafe in Tokyo. The cafe doesn't time travel. It's just that you go to the cafe to time travel. It's brilliant. Read it. It's really short. It made me cry with happy tears and I loved it. Definitely only read new books. I like rereading, but I don't do it very often, and if I was never allowed to reread again, I would be okay. Whereas if I was never allowed to read a new book again, disaster. I think I'm very happy, yes, and that's a very nice question. Whew, okay, I am absolutely exhausted. Like, I don't know if you've seen the light change. It's literally gone from daylight to pitch black outside while I've been doing these, and I'm so sorry that I actually didn't even answer. Like, there were so many questions I didn't answer, but hopefully that's given you a bit of an insight into my life and my reading life specifically. So if you have any other questions, like, put them in the comments below and I'll just answer them in the comments, and I will try and get to all of them that way. So I'm sorry if I didn't answer your question, but do give this video a thumbs up if you liked it and hit that subscribe button below for new videos every week. Cheers.